How's it going, guys? I know it's been a long time, but we're back at it. All right. Life is complicated. It's not as fun and easy as the Instagram stories or people out there might make it out to be. But it's good. It's good. As long as you work hard and you are good to others. You're good to yourself. Listen to what your own body needs, what your mind needs. Then life is pretty good. Life is pretty good. So we're finally back. It's been a little bit of time, but as I said, life gets busy, and you know I would love to be able to do these podcasts all the time, and not saying that I won't, but I will definitely get back to start to revitalize, to uh, 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 begin the journey again. So that's what I'm here to do. All right. So the first 10 podcasts, we did 10. Can you imagine that 10 podcasts of me just sitting in front of a microphone, no host, no script. Script means no pre-written, like already written down words and lines and what to say. I have none of that. I'm just thinking out loud and talking as I go, because this is a one-take podcast. With the exception of me having to go to the bathroom, or I don't know, I get hungry and have to eat. And most definitely the drinking water sessions, because it's important to stay hydrated, and when you talk for like 40 minutes at a time, you get thirsty. All right, so let's get back on this track. Now, the first podcast, the first 10 podcasts, it's kind of everywhere, right? It's kind of, the topics are very broad. It covers a lot of topics, a lot of ideas. So we talked about things such as the TOEFL test, which is, probably very important for people who are listening to this podcast, because it's probably one of the steps that they need to conquer, they need to pass in order to fulfill, in order to achieve their dreams. Okay? And then we talked about stuff like how to chat with Americans. Because once you get into a situation where you're studying in an American university, or I don't know, if you go to England or Germany, whatever, you have to be able to speak to foreigners, or else how are you going to survive, right? So we talk about all, a variety of things. And the purpose is kind of to gauge the audience, to test, to see what people want to know about, and to let people know, the lovely people who are listening to this podcast, that there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to be said. There is a lot of information that goes into improving your English speaking. All right. And it's not just speaking, it's about living, it's about doing things. So now that we have the first 10 done, we're going to dive into more subjects, but hopefully more topic focused, uh, based on what the viewers, or I guess the listeners, want, based on their request, their idea requests, their topic requests. So but anyways, we are gonna, for this topic, okay, this I did write down because I had to brainstorm, but the other things I didn't come up with. So this topic, we're gonna answer this question. So for the TOEFL test, right? How do you know whether you can answer the questions that are on the test correctly? And most importantly, how do you know if you can reply to the questions given the time limitations? So, for example, the most basic speaking question, right? The question on the speaking section is they'll ask you a simple question. So they'll ask you maybe which color do you like the most? Red or blue? So let's say in Chinese, 你比较喜欢什么颜色？红色还是蓝色？啊，为什么？为什么？你要跟我讲为什么？ You have to tell me why. And then you have 45 seconds. Well, first, you have 15 seconds to prepare to think about what you're going to say, to write down some things, right? And then once that 15 seconds is over, then you have 45 seconds to respond. Okay? So in Chinese, it would be 你现在有15分钟，没有15分钟太长。你现在有15秒，可以去想一下，去讨论，跟自己讨论。你等一下要讲什么？然后呢，你听到一个 beep， 你就要回答。然后你有45秒需要回答。啊，你的回答一定不能很烂，一定不能很笨，不然呢，我们不给你高分。I'm just kidding about that part. But, you know, you have 45 seconds to answer. Now, it's a simple question. Which one do you like, red or blue, right? I mean, if you know the answer already, let's say it's not your favorite color. Like, let's say your favorite color is yellow. And you don't really care about blue or red. So you're like, I don't know. Like, I want to say my favorite color is yellow, but the question is not giving you that choice. Because if you say, well, I prefer yellow to both red and blue, I mean, you know, they might think you're very smart because you're being a smart ass. Or they might just think you're stupid because you didn't answer the question correctly. Either way, I mean, it depends how you respond, right? If you use like really nice words and sayings, then they might give you high points anyways. But, you know, if you're listening to this podcast, then you better just answer the question as simple as it can be. Don't be a smartass. If you're a smartass, you probably wouldn't need to listen to this podcast to help you. Okay, so anyways. So, simple question, right? Well, okay, so how do you know if you can answer it? I mean, have you ever had friends in real life that ask you this question? Probably not really. They're not gonna time you for 40 seconds, certainly. So this is my tip. This is the trick to figuring out whether you can do it or not. Whether you can answer the question correctly. First of all, we have to separate, we have to acknowledge, we have to understand the issue at hand. Is it a language issue or is it a thinking issue, a thought process issue, or the idea issue? Now, what is a language issue? The language issue would be you know how to respond to that question in your native language. So, for example, you know, once you hear the question, then in your head you're kind of thinking like, 如果是我的话，我会比较喜欢蓝色，因为蓝色它比较怎么说？我的中文没有很好。My Chinese is not very good, okay, so forgive me. So it would be 蓝色比较 neutral， 比较bland， 比较就是比较 peaceful 一点。它没有像红色比较那种很攻击的感觉，因为红色呢就是血的颜色就是红色，或者是如 如果考试的话，然后我拿我的那个考题什么的回来，然后老师就在我的纸上写很多红色的字，说哦你错这个你错这个，所以红色呢有一点就是不好的感觉，所以呢我比较喜欢蓝色。So okay, I mean that's a okay, you know that's an answer, right? So okay, you can come up with something, right? Your point is blue is a more neutral, peaceful color compared to red, and your example is because um, red is symbolized as like aggressive color, as a violent color because blood, you know, like if people get shot, you see the blood coming out, it's red. And also, red is used to correct people. So on your test, on your exams, the teachers will mark it in red. So that has like a negative meaning. So that's why you kind of like blue better because it's more like positive a little bit. So, okay. That's what it would be in English. So if you're the person that you can think of what to say in Chinese, but you have a problem, you have trouble converting it or saying it in English to respond to the question, then we know it's a language problem. It's a 语言的问题, okay? However, if you get this question and even in your native language, even if you know just thinking about it in what the best language you're good at besides English, if you can't come up with an answer to respond, or if you can't do it within 45 seconds to begin with, to start off with, then we know it's more of a concept, it's more of an idea issue, okay? Because for non-native speakers, in order for them to respond to such weird questions, first, usually the thought process is, okay, I'm going to think about it in Chinese. Then I'm going to convert what I thought about and try to say it in English. Okay? Because if their English was good enough, if they were native, let's say, they would not even think about the answer in Chinese, really, or their other language. They would think about it in English. And the reason why it's, you know, so much better is because they cut down on their converting, on their translating time. They don't have to think in another language, have their brain, you know, and then, okay, convert it into English before saying it. See, they cut down that thinking time. And that thinking time is very important in 45 seconds because in 45 seconds, depending on how fast you talk, you can say a lot of things. Okay? And the more things you say for the test, the better score you will get. Because let's say if in 45 seconds, you spend, you know, they already give you 15 seconds to prepare, but you spend another 15 seconds out of your 45 seconds. So you spend 30 seconds total just to think about what you're going to say in English because you have to translate it in your head. Well, now that only leaves you 15 seconds. No, that leaves you 30 seconds to respond. And the thing is that right when the sound beeps, the listener, the grader, the person grading the exam, they want to hear you speak. Because if you don't speak, that means you're thinking way too long. That means it takes too much time for you to process, to think about what you're going to say. And that is an indication, that is a sign that you are not good at English. So they will give you a lower score. Because if in real life somebody asks you, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? And you pause for 5 to 10 seconds before you respond, well, that's gonna be an awkward conversation. So that's why they don't want to hear any silence. They want to hear you talk. Now, that's not to say you can't pause for a second or two or slow down what you say to recuperate, to think about what you're going to say, because, people do need time to think, but when you stay silent for so long, that's not very good. Okay? So now, obviously, being native, you want to just think about the answer in English and respond in English, But unfortunately, not every one of us can do that. So if that's the case, most of the time they have to convert, right? Now, if, ideally the second kind of tier, the second best scenario is that all you need to do is convert it and figure out what to say in English, because you already know how to answer the question. Now, the hard part, I feel, is when people have a concept problem, when they don't know how to respond to that question. So, what do we do about that? How can we help with that? Well, there are a couple of things you have to keep in mind. Tip number 1, what you're answering, what you say during the test, it does not have to be true. Now, think about this. The test is not investigation into your life. They're not gonna deduct points if what you say is a lie, if it's false. They just want to hear you talk. They don't care not that much of what you say, but they just want to hear you talk. Okay? So, now, obviously, people tend to do better talking about things when they've experienced it, when it is what happened to them. It is their truth. Because it is harder to come up with something that didn't happen, that you're just imagining things for most people, unless if you're very creative. Okay? So that is why it is best to just say what you experienced, what you've done before. So going back to the question, do you like red or blue? The test, the teacher's writing with red ink on your test, that's a good personal example, because I'm sure every student has gone through that. Now, the experience of, getting shot and blood coming out, that might not be as realistic, but maybe you saw it on TV, on the movies. So it is somewhat real to you. Okay? So, tip number 1, what you say does not have to be a truth or a fact. Now, if you're very creative, if you are like an actor, if you are the artiste, you can come up with things on the spot. That is very, very good. For example, kind of what I'm doing, I'm just coming up with things on the spot. I may be making examples or whatever stories to make the podcast more interesting. But that does not mean I'm actually doing it, that I've actually done it. So let's go to a good example. What happens when they ask you a question that you've never done before? So let's say the question is this. Talk about the time you've been to a rock concert or a opera, oh, where they sing weirdly, and just talk about the experience and did you like it or did you not like it? Okay. Now, as let's say you're like, okay, you know what an opera is, where they go, ooh, okay, but you never been to one, because why would you? You don't like opera, you like listening to rock or rap, you know, yo yo yo, what is up? You know what I'm saying? That kind of music, right? And you're like, I never been to an opera concert. I don't know what to talk about. Okay. The people who, if you do get this question, that is very unfortunate. If you're the person that cannot think of stuff, that cannot resist telling a lie, that cannot, or at least come up with ideas, just make things up, then you're going to have trouble with this question. But a lot of those people, they do not know the tip that I just gave, is that you don't have to say the truth of actually what happened to you. So of course, they're asking what your experiences are from this opera concert. Well, you can just make that experience up. Okay? So you can just say, you can respond, I went to the opera concert last year with my grandma who loves to hear opera. And my grandma, she had a birthday coming up, and I was thinking of ideas on what to give her as a present. So, and I've always overheard from my parents that my grandma loves to listen to opera. And whenever I go to her house, she would have opera music playing in the background. Okay. Even though I hated it, I know that's what she likes. So I thought of buying some tickets to an opera concert. And so I did. I took her. Okay. And then when I went, I don't know, you can say you sat in the front row. You were able to see the singer. The singer was a little bit chubby. Not the prettiest looking person. However, their voice was very good. It was amazing performance vocally. Okay? So, you see how I just made stuff up on the spot? And although it didn't really happen to me, I know kind of what to talk about. Now, here's another tip for this tip, okay? A tip within a tip. If it is not your own experience, but is someone else that you know, that is perfect. Just put yourself in their position. So, if you've overheard that, your older sister, she's gone to an opera concert for sure, and she's told you what it was like, well, just pretend that you are your older sister who went to the opera concert, and just say what happened to that while you were at the concert, but say it in your words, like say it happened to you. That makes it easier. Okay? So you see how that can work? That can help you out. So the concept, right? The concept issue. That's tip number 1. Now, let me think of another tip. But before I do, I'm going to drink some water because my throat is thirsty, okay? Or dry, whatever. Nice. Just telling you guys, this is my way of stalling, of trying to think on the spot what to say next, because to be honest, I don't quite remember what a tip 2 would be, okay? So get I'm still drinking water, okay? Whew, okay. La 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 la. Opera. Okay. I hope you guys are like actually entertained because the stuff that I do for this, man, it is crazy, Asim. It is so crazy. Okay, so tip number two. Tip number two. What you want to do if it is a concept issue, you just want to think about things that you can that is easy. You want to think about templates, things that are pre-designed that you can adjust, that you can change a little bit to fit what you want to say, to fit to the question. So for example, right, family members. So for your examples, in order to make it look or sound like it actually happened to you, that is your own personal experience, if you include like names, or if you, instead of saying family member, you can say my auntie, my uncle, my grandma, my brother, my brother from another mother. Okay, see, this is a perfect example of why it is not entirely one take, because someone was knocking on my door. It was like, "Come out, it's an officer. We're at your door. You better put your hands up." No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't a policeman, okay? It was just a mailman delivering mail, all right? But anyways, I had to go get it. So anyways, sorry for the interruption, but to you, it doesn't sound like that because, I just press record right after. Anyways, so we're back. Okay, so you want to come up with templates, right? Templates. You want to come up with names. You want to come up with situations. So if you need any examples of what happened in your life, you want to have a go-to phrase. You want to be able to say, "Oh, my older brother, Tom, we did this together. My auntie, Clara, she took me to to a museum." Whatever. You want to be able to come up with that. Okay? Or you want to be able to describe the person. So, for example, the question might be, who is your best friend? And explain why they are your best friend. 你的最好的朋友是谁？为什么他是最好的朋友？ Okay? So you would say, my best friend is Philip, or my best friend is Tony, and you want to be able to say what their personality is. So, let's say Philip, he's a 6'3" guy who loves to play basketball. He's very athletic. He's very hardworking too. Or, Tony, he's not as tall, but he still loves to play basketball. He was very good at basketball. He probably still is good at basketball, probably better than me, but he's a little bit older now, so he might not be as good, but he's still really good at basketball. So shout out to Tony and Philip, all right? So, you want to be able to come up with that on the spot. You don't want to have to think about, let's see, my friend Tony, what is he like? No, you want to be able to know exactly, like, boom, right on the spot. Okay, so come up with templates of examples you can use, okay? And you want to practice those ahead of time, too. Okay? Now, tip number three. When they ask you questions such as compare this to that, or which one do you like better, and they give you the two examples. They don't ask you, from starting, from blank, from zero. So a good example would be this. If they give you no example, it would be, who is your best friend and tell me why. So that is that example, okay? Now, if they give you two examples, the question would be, which one do you like better? Basketball or soccer? So they give you two. All right? Now, if they give you two, if you're dealing with this type of question, the tip number 3 is this. Pick the one that you know more about. Okay? Or pick the one that you think it is easier to respond, to talk about. And most of the time, 大部分的时候, it would be the one you know about more. Okay? Because the more you know about it, the more you can talk about it. So, it doesn't have to actually be the one you like more, right? Remember, it doesn't have to be the truth. But if it's the one you like or you know about more and you can talk more about it, pick that one and say you like that more. Okay? Let's say you love soccer. You love playing soccer. Okay? However, for some reason on the test day, you can't think of stuff to talk about soccer. Or the question, how they frame it, you don't quite know. However, basketball, for some odd reason, you don't play it, but maybe you watch it or something. And you know what to talk about. So a good example could be this. I mean, the question might not be this complicated, but let's just say it is, okay? The question might be this. If you ever met a famous sport player of the, a sports or a player, a famous player for a certain sport, which one would you rather meet, and tell me why? And they give you two, out of the two sports, basketball and soccer. So let's just say this. Okay, here's a good example, right? So you love to play soccer. You play soccer, okay? You know the soccer. Let's say you're from Taiwan, right? All you know is Asian soccer players. You don't know, let's say for some reason you know their Chinese name, but you don't know their English name. And on the TOEFL test, they don't want to hear you say Chinese, but they want to know who the person is. Okay, that's a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Okay? But let's say you also watch basketball. Okay? You don't play basketball. You don't know as much about basketball as you do soccer, but you do know a name. You do know the name LeBron James. Okay? Now, just so happens the question is asking about the famous player, right? So, you can't say, whatever the Chinese name of your soccer player is, but you can say LeBron James. So, even though you don't know as much about basketball, because you know the name, it is easier for you to answer that question. So you're kind of lying because you're like, I like soccer more, but I know more about basketball, so I'm going to say basketball. You're going to say LeBron James, okay? And then you can go into, the LeBron James, he does a lot for the people. He opened a school. He donates, whatever. He'll always take picture with fans when they ask him to. All that stuff, right? So that's tip number 3, okay? Always pick the answer that you know more about, that you can talk about more, because the chances of you getting stuck on that question is less. Okay? All right, so this podcast is pretty long, so I think we're gonna end it here. And that's it. Okay, so podcast number 11, we talked about the fundamentals of answering a TOEFL question, whether it is a language issue or a concept issue. Now, if it is a language issue, okay, then what we need to do is to help you convert it, the thought. If we can improve your conversion time, if we can translating time, whatever, if we can help you understand vocabulary to fit what you're trying to think about, then that would help your score tremendously. Okay? Now, if your problem is a concept, it's an idea issue, and on top of that, you have the translating problem, the language problem, well then, I'm sorry, my friend, you're going to have to listen to a lot of these podcasts. All right? But it means a lot of work has to be done, but we can still do it. It just needs more work. But if for some reason it's just the case that you can translate, it's just you have a hard time coming up with the ideas, okay, then what we'll do is focus on such tips to help you come up with stupid things to say when they ask you the questions. Okay? So that's it. That's it, guys. So thank you for tuning in to this podcast. And it's almost Christmas time. So I'm going to wish everyone, a Merry Christmas. And, what people say is Happy Holidays, because maybe they're not Christian. They don't celebrate like Santa. Maybe they celebrate something else. So you want to say Happy Holidays, just so you don't offend anyone, just so you don't exclude anyone. Okay? So you guys have a wonderful day. And New Year's is coming up. I might talk about that. I might record another podcast before that comes up. And then I will say, don't drink and drive. All right? But that's it. It's time for me to shut up. And as always, the goal is to improve your English. Now, do you want to do that? Well, you came to the right place. All right, it's Peter Hung. I'm out of here. Catch you guys later. Bye.